Everyone knows, well, most of you know, that I'm a college student right now. I actually just started my junior year of college. And this year is going to be difficult for me because I'm commuting this year. So the first 2 years, I lived on campus. This year, I'm living at home. So I know it's going to be challenging because I'm going to have to take time to do my work. Like at school, you have all the time in the world. At home, I know I'm going to want to be with my family and play around, and I know I have to stay on top of my guard, basically. Even though I know it's going to be challenging being here at home in Pittsburgh, I know it's not going to be as hard as it was living on campus. Living on campus comes with so many distractions. There's drugs, people experimenting with drugs, people drinking, there's parties, there's boys, there's a whole bunch of different things that can distract you from your schoolwork and distract you from your relationship with Yahweh. So many things could be detrimental to my walk. I'm not gonna lie, my old friends were involved in stuff like drinking and partying and stuff. And when I first came to school, they would always ask me, do you want to go with us? Do you want to smoke? Do you want to drink and stuff? And I would always say no, that's not me, After a while, they stopped asking. They just know what to expect now. Well, one day, because my friends claim to be Christians, but they don't live the life. So one day, one of my friends came up to me, and she said, Michaela, you're my goal. And I'm like, why? Why? She's like, you're so strong in your faith that you don't let peer pressure get to you and do the things that you know that Yahweh wouldn't like you to do. She says, I'm trying to get to your level. I didn't want to seem cocky or prideful, so I just said, girl, I got a long way to go. But after that conversation, I was really bothered. I didn't understand why I was bothered at the time because, she said something good. It was positive. She basically said that she wished her relationship with Yahweh was at the same level as me, even though I didn't like that attention. I still didn't know. It wasn't negative what she said. So I had to do some soul searching. And then I figured out why it bothered me so much. Because I knew what she said wasn't the truth. See, it seems like I was staying away from the drugs and the alcohol and the parties because that's what Yahweh says we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be a light. Our life is supposed to be an example set before us. But that's not why I wasn't doing that stuff. I knew it was a sin. But in reality, the reason why I wasn't participating in that was because I wanted to stay in control. We all know that alcohol and drugs can take someone out of the right mindset and they lose control. It would have been great if Yahweh was the reason I avoided these things, but he wasn't. The real reason was because I needed to feel like I was in control of what was happening to me. Now, I know this isn't staying away from that stuff. I know I did the right thing by staying, but my motivation wasn't right. After I came to this realization, Yahweh began to show me that wasn't the only area of my life that I was in control of. There's so many things in my life that I was holding on to and not going to Yahweh and letting him have that part of me. Did you hear me, guys? That wasn't the only thing in my life that I was in control of. My life I control was my mindset, but it wasn't the right one. This was a huge problem, and this was my problem. So today in my message, we are going to be talking about control. And the title of my message is, Let's Be Honest, Is Yahweh in Control? And yes, you have to say it nasally and judgmental because that's how I like it. Okay. In this message, we're going to be talking about what Yahweh has personally shown me about control. Now, truthfully, I love that this message is about control because it's such a broad statement. Seriously, like so many things can fit into the topic control. But how I'm talking about control is a self-reliance, like taking your circumstances and trying to control them using your own power instead of leaning on Yahweh. That's how I'm defining control. Okay. When people hear that holding on to control is a sin, they automatically start to minimize it. I've heard people say, well, when I have a problem or an issue, I try to fix it myself and instead of going to Yahweh. But they say it with such a carefree attitude, like it's not that big of a problem and it's just something that I need to fix. But they fail to recognize the intensity of the actual problem. Being in control isn't something small. If we were being honest, we could say that having control is pride because we think we are more capable with our life than Yahweh is. If we were being honest, I would say that having control shows a lack of trust for Yahweh because you think you can hold on to your life that he gave you. If I was being even more brutally honest, I would say that this shows the lack of relationship with Yahweh. You don't trust someone you don't know. If you don't trust Yahweh, then you don't know Yahweh. You are strangers. Control. It's not just this little problem that you need to fix. It's not just a tiny little issue. Control is the way that leads you to hear, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity, because I never knew you." Or should I say, because we are strangers. See, I knew I had an issue, and I knew I needed to fix it. I needed Yahweh's help to fix it. So we already established that letting go of control and trusting Yahweh is the core to our walk as Christians. When we chose to get baptized, we went down into the watery grave and we came back up, leaving our ways, our thoughts behind and taking on Yahshua's. His ways, his thoughts. Yahshua set the perfect example for us in the Garden of Gethsemane. When he knew he was about to be crucified, when he knew he was going to be whipped, when he knew he was going to be mocked and spit on, he knew and he still handed over his control to Yahweh. When he said, "Not my will, but thy will be done." We as Christians are supposed to follow his lead. He died for us, so we live for him, taking on his identity and his motto. Not my will be done, but his will. But for me, this was easier said than done. I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know how to fix it. I'm going to school for psychology. And in psychology, before you can try to find a solution to your problem, you need to find the root of the problem. So why do we resist giving control to our Creator? If we were being honest with ourselves, then we would admit that it's because of fear. When we are afraid of what would happen if we were to let go, we think that all the things in our lives that we have been struggling for so long to hold on to will just fall apart and crumble right before our eyes if we were to let go of our control. Once we let go of the grass, we don't know what will happen. We worry that once we let go of the control, that we will fall apart. Many of us have given our hearts before just to watch someone hurt us. Now we set up protective walls so that nobody can come within arm's reach. We don't trust anyone else but ourselves. We rely on ourselves. Not even Yahweh, our Creator, gets our trust. We refuse to be vulnerable again, and we shut everybody out, including our Savior. We put up these walls because we think that holding on to our control is a way to keep us from getting hurt. It's the safe way, we think. But in reality, it's the most dangerous thing we can do. That power that you are holding on to, that trust, that control, is flesh. You are holding on to yourself when you should have let go when we went down in that watery grave. We need to be honest with ourselves. Why are we still hanging on to control? I pose my message as a question because I want you to really think about your own personal walk and what are some things that you are still holding on to. What are the things that Yahweh does not have that he should have? For those who have been hurt before and won't put their trust in Yahweh, know that he is a perfect God. And all that he does is for the good. He is more than deserving of your trust. He is more than deserving of your life. For those who are afraid that everything around them will fall apart and that they will be nothing, I'm going to tell you, you will fall apart. Everything around you will, but Yahweh will be waiting to build you back up. And not only will he build you back up, but he will make you whole. Right when you're at your lowest, he'll be waiting. And for those who fear, Isaiah 41:10 says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God, and I will uphold you with my righteous hand." Don't let fear keep you away from Yahweh. Open up and give yourself completely to him. He will not fail you. I think a really great story in the Bible that shows trust and fear can be found in Matthew 14:22 through 33. So if you guys could turn there. Matthew 14:22 through 33. And if I can have a volunteer to read.
And straightway Yahshua constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night Yahshua went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Yahshua spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Yahshua. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Yahshua stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of truth thou art the Son of Elohim.
So in this chapter, we have the disciples sitting in a boat. And I'm just going to point out that the waters they were in weren't really calm. It says their boat was beaten by the waves and the wind was against them. Then, out of nowhere, Yahshua steps out onto the waters. He sees that the disciples don't recognize him and calls out to them. Peter says, If it is really you, call me out onto the water with you. Yahshua did. Peter stepped out of the boat and looked at the wind and began to sink. Now, Peter represents us. And just like we put our trust into Yahweh and chose to get baptized, Peter also put a little trust into Yahshua and stepped out into the water. Putting complete trust in Yahweh as he stands on the stormy waters. This is how it should be. This is what Yahweh is asking for. He wants us to know that he's completely in control, and all we have to do is trust. Can you imagine this scene? What an incredible couple of seconds it must have been. Then, in this glorious moment, Peter looks around and sees the wind and the waves. He becomes afraid, and fear overpowers his trust in Yahshua. We go through life, and when a storm comes our way and a problem arises, we fear that things won't work out the way for us that we want. And we immediately try to take control of the situation and fail miserably. Peter took his trust back once he's seen the waves. But remember, this is the same Peter who said, Let me come out onto the water with you. Peter's talk was bigger than his actions. How many of us are guilty of the same? We may say we trust Yahweh and that he's our guide, but when we put we are put to the test, our words don't line up with our actions. Pastor Jeremy talked about this a little bit in his last message. He said, we will be held accountable for every word that comes out of our mouth. He talked about how we sit in church and we sing songs, but they don't line up with our actions. We sit in these pews and we sing songs like, Thy will be done, completely giving it my all, and lay me down. But our actions aren't lining up. We aren't being honest. Just like Peter wasn't being honest with himself. Peter goes on to make the same mistake again. When Yahshua tells him, his disciples, that he is going to be crucified and he's going to die, and told Peter, you are going to deny me, Peter refuses to believe Yahshua's words. And when the time comes, Yahshua is taken, and Peter witnesses it, following behind the crowd closely. Can you imagine how Peter must have felt? Confused, worried, angry, but most of all, afraid. And when someone recognized him and confronted him, fear convinced him that Yahshua was not in control. And he denied him, and denied him, and denied him. Peter wanted to preserve his life. But instead of putting his life into Yahweh's hands and trusting that Yahweh had him, he tried to solve it with his own power, which caused him to sin. Fear will do that to you. When I first figured out that fear was the root of my control issues or self-reliance, I still didn't understand how to let it go. Like, I knew what was causing my problem, but I didn't know how to deal with it or how to go about it. So I did what every teenage female does when she has a problem. And I went to my mom. And basically, she told me, she said that this was her problem as well in the beginning of her walk. And she said that Yahweh had to bring her to her lowest point so that she can turn to him. She had to learn how to be helpless. Now, what she said was cute and all, but I didn't want to be brought down to rock bottom to learn my lesson. But what I did take from her little chat was when she said she had to learn how helpless she really was. So the first thing I did was pray and ask Yahweh to help me, because I realized that I can't even let go of my control by myself. I needed Yahweh's help to do it. And I knew I needed to change my mindset. So going back to my psychology, in psychology, whenever someone has a skewed mindset about themselves or low self-esteem, we are supposed to challenge that negative mindset with a simple but positive technique. So basically, every single day we tell the person to say 3 things about themselves that are positive, and after a certain amount of time of doing that, it changes their outlook or their mindset. So I figured I could start with this same technique. So every day, I named 3 things that I can't control. Day 1, health, finances, and my next breath. Day 2, others. I can't control what happens to my home. I can't control if we get robbed. The list goes on. I can't control who's in my family. I can't control natural disasters. I can't control death. I can't control my relationship. I can barely control myself. But for some reason, we feel the need to try and hold on, to control everything, when in reality, we are helpless. We can't do anything, but you know who can? He can. He's the one who controls your sickness and your health. He's the one who blessed you with your job and provides for your needs. He chose the day you took your first breath, and he's going to choose the day you use your last. He's your protector. He's the one who blessed you with a spouse. He's the one who gave you your children. He's the one who controls the wind and the waves, and he's the one that gave us this church family. Everything belongs to him, and he has dominion over all. We need to realize how helpless we really are. The truth is, trying to control everything takes a serious toll on us. You're constantly worried, anxious, and stressed and afraid that things won't work out. We were never meant to carry that burden. Psalms 55:22 says, "Cast your burdens on Yahweh, and he shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved." Yahweh's got you. You can open your grasp and be free. Give your life over to him. Now I have to go back to Peter because I left him on a bad note. Everybody deserves a come-up story. And where we left him off, he wasn't doing so well. So if you guys could turn to Acts 12, 1 through 11. And if I could have a volunteer read it.
Now about that time Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James the brother of John with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison, and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Passover to bring him forth to the people. Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto Elohim for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison. And he smote Peter on the side, and raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands. And the angel said unto him, Gird thyself, and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And he saith unto him, Cast thy garment about thee, and follow me. And he went out, and followed him, and wist not that it was true which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. When they were past the first and the second ward, they came unto the iron gate that leadeth into the city, which opened to them of his own accord. And they went out, and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. And when Peter was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel, and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews.
So, Herod had arrested and put James to death. And this gave him influence with the people. So he decided it was a good idea to go after Peter as well. And him hoping if he got Peter, that the crowd would love him even more. So Peter was arrested. Now, this is the part of the story where fear should have kicked in. I mean, Peter's just been arrested. He knows they are planning to kill him. And yes, the church is praying for him, but they probably prayed for James too. And James was still put to death. He knew Herod was out for his head, and he didn't know how things were going to turn out. Old Peter would have looked at the circumstances and began to drown in fear. But not new Peter. Like I said before, Yahweh will rebuild you and make you whole. Just put your trust in him. Verse 6 says that Peter was sleeping. It's the night before his trial, and he is asleep. This is where Yahweh's peace that passes all understanding comes into play. Peter doesn't know what's going to happen to him. And he doesn't know, but he does know that there's a high chance that it'll be his last night. But he still puts his trust in Yahweh. And this is how he can be at peace. Because when Yahweh's in control, whatever happens to you, whether Peter lives or dies, he knows everything is going a part of Yahweh's plan. Yahweh chose his first breath, and Yahweh will choose his last. So what if kingdoms crumble down? So what if storm clouds roll? So what if this world be destroyed? He'll take care of our soul. This is the mindset that we should have. I have no need to fear the night, the terror it may bring. For while I'm walking in the light, I'm walking with the King. Peter stepped out again, but this time he didn't let fear convince him not to trust. Yahweh sent his angel to Peter. The angel tells Peter to get up, and Peter listens. How many of you guys know that a big part of trusting and giving control is simply obedience? You have to obey Yahweh and trust that he will work out all the rest of it. Once Peter got up, the chains fell off. Him and the angels walked past the guards, and the gates opened up. How many of you guys know that Yahweh will do for you what you can't do for yourself? All you have to do is give him your trust. Peter was completely helpless. He couldn't take those chains off. He couldn't open the gates. He couldn't get past the guards. All of that was because of Yahweh helped him. We need to learn to trust Yahweh, because he can do what we can't. We need to learn how helpless we really are. Put trust in Yahweh even when we don't understand. If you read back in here, it says that Peter thought he was having a vision. He was totally clueless. He didn't know what was going on, but he trusted anyways. And that's why it worked out for him. Peter learned his lesson. After he denied Yahshua and fell in the water, I know he had to have a big turnaround for him to get this far. He learned his lesson, and even to the point where he died as a martyr, he gave his life over to Yahweh. It was in Yahweh's complete control, and that's what we should be doing. Even when we don't understand, even when we can't see his hand in it, Yahweh is working. Because I'm going to tell you, Acts chapter 12 starts off with Herod trying to kill Peter, but Acts chapter 12 ends with Peter alive and Herod dead. Even when he couldn't see, Yahweh was working in the situation. Yahweh had a purpose for Peter. He wasn't finished with him yet. Just like he has a purpose for you. You just have to surrender control and give it to him. I want you guys to say, I give them to you as I go down my list. But I really want you to mean it and not just say it. I want you to think, what are you holding on? What are you keeping from Yahweh? What does he not have control of? Does he have control of your finances? I give them to you. Your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your children, your health, your job, your relationship, your home, your decisions, your life. For he is our guide, he is our shepherd, he is our light, he is our rock, he is our way, he is our navigator, he is our father, he is our helper, he is our protector, he is our provider, he is our savior, he is our Lord, and I will trust in you. So be honest with yourself. Is Yahweh in control? Amen.